A true assassin needs to be a master of his weapons, and John Wick has achieved a great legacy in the underworld by being the best in business. Besides being a versatile marksman, he has used a wide range of weapons in the movies, and when you combine that with his incredible martial arts skills, it makes him near invincible in a violent world filled with threats around every corner. In this video, we will be looking back at every weapon he used in the 4 John Wick movies so far, which have added to his lethal prowess. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Pencil, the weapon that defines John Wick. We had to start the proceedings with a weapon that symbolizes the legacy and aura around the dreaded assassin. John Wick is first introduced to us by a Russian crime lord Viggo, while he punishes the blunder of his son Joseph, who killed John Wick's dog and stole his car. John Wick previously worked for Viggo, and one of the defining stories that the crime lord has about John is about the time when he killed 3 men in the bar with a pencil. Even Viggo's brother expresses his amazement about this feat in the second movie, and just to prove that the stories are not myths and exaggerated accounts, John Wick uses a pencil to take down 2 assassins. He quickly stabs them in vital points to immobilize them, and the final takedown is a rather graphic moment where he jabs the pencil into one of their ears and hammers it in with his hands, killing the man on the spot. Luckily for his enemies, pencils aren't always available, and John has to make do with firearms and other weapons. Martial arts. John Wick's greatest weapon. John Wick can be one's greatest nemesis in close-quarter combat, and many of the toughest fighters in the franchise have learnt about this the hard way. What makes John so deadly is not the abundance of weapons and firearms, but it is his core skill. He is a trained martial arts expert, and he is second to none in hand-to-hand combat. His skills have been on display in every movie of the franchise, and the epic fight scenes justify his reputation. John can run out of ammo or be disarmed, but you simply cannot take him out of the fight because of his martial arts expertise. He immobilizes his opponents with his bare hands and deadly kicks, and he moves like a ninja during these close-quarter fights. Give such a man a gun or other lethal weapons, and you have a killing machine who stops at absolutely nothing. Heckler & Koch P30L, one of his most iconic firearms. We can see John with this long slide version of the P30 pistol in the very first movie in the franchise. After he goes on a revenge spree following the brutal killing of his dog, John Wick digs up the floor in his basement to reveal a secret case that he had buried when he retired from the assassin business. The case contains a pair of P30 pistols along with a large collection of the special gold coins valued in the underworld. The weapon shown in the movie uses the same 15-round magazines as the original version, and it is chambered in 9x19mm parabellum. This is quite an effective firearm for close combat because the custom compensator reduces the muzzle rise significantly, making it deadly accurate. John Wick can be seen wielding these bad boys in the first home invasion after a few assassins break into his house to kill him. Later, he also uses the P30L pistols in the infamous nightclub shootout, and also during the climactic fight scene in the docks. Glock 26, simple and brutal. Looks can be deceptive, and Glock 26 is a great example of how true the statement is in case of firearms. It is a short little pistol which is first shown after John Wick digs up his hidden firearms and coins in the first movie. These are compact 9x19mm handguns that have a standard 10-round magazine. The best thing about the Glock 26 is how it can be quickly concealed between the layers of John's suit and can be produced during during an emergency. He uses these pistols a number of times in the first 3 movies, and it is one of his personal favorites. The bathhouse sequence in the first movie has an epic shootout featuring the Glock 26, and the assassin kills over a dozen thugs involved with Josef, the man who killed his dog. John also kills one of his enemies at the bathhouse while performing a failure drill, which is a method where a third shot is fired, aimed at the head of the attacker after the first 2 failed to bring him down. It is a sure-shot way to ensure fatality, and the Glock 26 is a pretty effective pistol to have in this regard. The deadliest weapons are often the ones that are the easiest to use, and Glock 26 scores quite high in this regard. Unknown explosives. There is a rare moment in the first John Wick movie where the assassin uses explosives to blow up the cars used by Josef and his men to prevent anyone from escaping. It is right after he attacks Josef's safe house and kills a bunch of men using a sniper rifle, and the explosives trigger the kind of fear that John wanted his dog Skiller to experience before he put a bullet in him. The nature of the explosives is not revealed, but they could potentially be C4 explosives used to a calculated degree for the desired impact. Caltech KSG, one of the mean-looking guns used in John Wick 2014. This has to be one of the scariest-looking firearms used by John Wick in the first movie of the franchise, and he wields the KSG during a showdown in the streets of New York. This gun has 2 magazine tubes, and each can carry up to 7 shells with a maximum capacity of 15 rounds. Released by Caltech in 2011, this pump-action 12-gauge shotgun can be devastating in combat, and John carries around a modified version of the weapon fitted with a holographic sight and foregrip. It is unfortunate that we didn't see more of this weapon because it surely made for a great scene. CA-415, a brutal rifle for the deadly assassin. The Kohari Arms CA-415 can be seen in some important scenes of the first John Wick movie, notably the church shootouts and the parking lot encounters that follow. This American-made rifle is said to be a copy of the Heckler & Koch HK-416 tactical rifle, and John Wick uses a customized model for best results. His rifle has a shorter barrel than usual and also has an attached holographic sight for better aiming. The nice foregrip ensures proper gripping while firing this weapon, and John Wick took down a bunch of trained killers using it. Get down! DTA Stealth Recon Scout, the accurate sniper rifle. The scene where John Wick finally takes down the one responsible for the killing of his dog is an immensely satisfying moment for the audience. Josef is held up in a safe house, which is well guarded with snipers and henchmen, but John infiltrates the compound and stealthily takes down one of the snipers. Thereafter, he uses his rifle, which is the DTA Stealth Recon Scout. This is comparatively a recent weapon because it was introduced in 2007 during the Desert Tactical Arms production. Besides the intimidating looks of this elegant rifle, it is also freakishly accurate and deadly. This bolt-action sniper rifle features a bullpup design, and it is also one of the easiest sniper rifles in business. The balance of this weapon is excellent, and John Wick takes down a majority of Josef's men with this weapon. The hits are spot on, and the men drop dead before they can realize what is happening. John Wick's beloved Mustang. If you are familiar with all the John Wick movies, you are surely not surprised by the inclusion of his iconic car in this list of weapons used by him. The titular hitman has made his affinity towards the Mustang known from the very first movie. He secures the car in the second movie after it is stolen, and after getting back his prized possession, he uses some magical driving techniques to crush his enemies using this car. This version of Bullet Mustang is one of the most attractive cars in cinematic history, and John Wick makes it more than just a beautiful machine. From running over them to crashing into them, or even using the car doors to knock out opponents, John Wick proves to be just as deadly with a car as he is with a gun. Of course, the car also takes quite a few hits, and by the end of all the action, it is badly damaged. But it is nothing that his brilliant mechanic accomplice cannot fix. There is a crazy car sequence in the recent release as well, and John Wick fighting on the streets with a traffic rush is one of the crazy moments in the movie. Besides using his car as a weapon, John also gets hit by a car quite frequently by his enemies. However, he is an agile and hardy man, and he usually sustains minimal injuries from these hits. Knives, the easiest and the deadliest John Wick weapon. Knives have proved to be John Wick's trusted allies every now and then, and the Baba Yaga of the assassin world is quite a force with anything sharp. He is often a part of extensive shootouts with multiple opponents, and evidently he runs out of ammo at some point. It is a common practice amongst the assassins to turn to knives when bullets run dry, and John Wick is particularly gifted with these things. He stabs and cuts through hundreds of enemies using knives, but perhaps his most memorable knife skills are on display during his fight scene at the antique store in John Wick Chapter 3. When he is cornered, he uses antique knives from a glass shelf and starts throwing them at his opponent. The ones sent out to have him killed do the same, and it is a brief moment of madness where everyone is throwing knives at each other. Another crucial knife kill is when he uses Aris's knife to kill her, and the mute assassin dies helplessly after being stabbed in the heart. John Wick clearly doesn't abide by the concept of not bringing knives to a gunfight. Taran Tactical TR1 Ultralight and the Benelli M4 Super 90. The first one is a competition shooting AR-15 chambered in 5.56 into 45mm, which John Wick uses during his shootout in the catacombs. In John Wick Chapter 2, the assassin is pursued by various threats in the catacombs, and he can be seen retrieving this rifle from a hidden location because he had assumed he would be attacked. This allows him more firepower than his Glock 34, and he can be seen using a modified version of the weapon, which makes it deadlier. Towards the later part of this shootout, he runs out of ammo for the TR1 and switches to this well-known 12-gauge semi-automatic shotgun, the Benelli M4 Super 90. This was also a part of the secret weapons that he had retrieved earlier, and both these firearms come in handy during this dangerous situation. Kimber Warrior 1911, the pistol that kills Santino. John Wick Chapter 2 introduces a crucial twist in the climactic moments where John Wick is injured and cornered by Santino's assassins. He is rescued by the Bowery King, who is amused by his resentment towards a high table member, and he agrees to help him out with the arms and ammunition required for the killing. The unforgettable Bowery King moment was him announcing, "Somebody please get this man a gun," and the gun that is given to John Wick is the Kimber Warrior 1911. The Bowery King also provides him with 7 rounds for the 7 million contract on his head, and it is enough for John to get back into the fight. The art gallery shootout sees him using the gun briefly, but he quickly transitions to a pistol from one of his fallen enemies once he runs out of bullets. This specific gun might not have killed Santino, but it surely ensured the drive and confidence in John Wick to go ahead and finish the job that he'd started.
Put a bullet through my heart.
Colt Model 1903 Pocket Hammerless, Winston's classic gift. In John Wick Chapter 3, Winston gifts John one of the best looking guns in the franchise, and you will be surprised just how old this weapon really is. We are talking about the pistol with a pearl grip that Winston hands over to John during the scene at the Executive Lounge. This Colt Model 1903 has been in production since 1903, and the weapon has been a valuable asset as a sidearm for US military personnel. It is credited for its simplicity and stylish nature, and the weapon is extremely reliable. On the downside, the Colt 1903 can be a bit on the heavier side, but modifications over the years have erased most of its other flaws. Taran Tactical STI 2011 Combat Master, the savior during the shootout at Continental Hotel. This double-stack competition version of the actual 1911 pistol is one of the most important firearms used in John Wick Chapter 3. When the assassins of the High Table attack the Continental Hotel, John and Sharon join forces to repel the attackers. Sharon takes John to his secret armory, and they both initially pick this chambered 9x19mm major pistol against the enemies. Of course, they soon realize that these weapons are only partially effective against the High Table mercenaries because of their bulletproof attire, and they quickly switch to other deadly weapons. Benelli M2 Super 90, the armor blasters. When John and Sharon realize that their regular bullets aren't going to penetrate the bulletproof armor of the assassins of the High Table, they quickly regroup and change to a Benelli M2. This 12-gauge semi-automatic shotgun is loaded with 12-gauge steel slugs and armor piercing, and when they resume the fight, the duo is a lot deadlier than before. All it takes is one good shot, and even the bulletproof armoring cannot save the assassins from these hits. Before switching to this effective shotgun, John also uses the MPX carbine briefly, which is a 16-inch barrel version of the SIG MPX submachine gun and chambered in 9x19mm. It helps during the shootout, until it is time for the Benelli M2 to be brought into action. Remington 1875, a gun of historical importance. A single-shot, single-action revolver might have been used briefly, but it offers a valuable referencing to a similar scene in the iconic classic The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. John Wick uses this gun in John Wick Chapter 3 after laying his hands on the weapon in the Antique Gun Museum. There is also a single .44-40 round on display, and when John realizes that the cartridge doesn't fit in the cylinder, he quickly disassembles another revolver and uses its parts. He does the whole thing in a matter of seconds, just in time for him to shoot his attacker dead. This scene is a direct reference to the time when Tuco assembled his Colt Navy from individual parts of 3 guns in the Clint Eastwood classic. Katana and wakizashi, the mythical Japanese blades. John doesn't necessarily need a firearm to take down hordes of enemies, which is probably evident from his incredible skills with a mere pencil. In John Wick Chapter 3, the seasoned hitman can be seen using swords and knives a lot more than in the first 2 movies, and one of his most iconic blades has to be the katana. This incredibly sharp-edged sword was historically used by Japanese samurai, and John also uses another mythical Japanese blade called the wakizashi, which is a short sword. This iconic duel with Zero, played by Mark Dacascos, is one of the unforgettable moments in the franchise, and John's use of the sword to bring him down is a decisive moment in the movie. In the recent release, John Wick Chapter 4, John Wick can be seen using these classic Japanese blades yet again during the attack scene in Osaka Continental. The manager of this Continental hotel, Cozy, is also a skilled swordsman, as are his men and his daughter, and together they put up quite a display while repelling the mercenary forces sent in by the High Table. Baba Yaga and his crazy motorcycle skills. For a man who can turn a pencil into a weapon, a motorcycle is absolutely lethal, and John Wick proves his riding skills during an intense chase sequence in the 3rd installment of the franchise. The motorcycle that he rides is a Yamaha MT-09, which is a good-looking, sleek vehicle. It might have nothing to compete with his cars in terms of horsepower, but the mean machine is still fast enough to do the damage. He can be seen riding through the streets of Paris, and besides his crazy skills with the motorcycle, he also uses it as a weapon. The hard maneuvering and drifting confuse many of the chasers and caused them to crash. And there is a moment where he simply lets his motorcycle hit Chidi, one of the deadly killers. TTI JW4 Pit Viper, the Bowery King's valuable gift. John Wick Chapter 4 maintains the tradition of some amazing firearms being used, and Bowery King adds to the long list with his amazing gift to John Wick. After the duel between John and Vincent de Gramont is announced, the Bowery King and Winston realize the need for a suitable firearm for John to protect himself from the assassins sent out after him. This 9mm pistol is supposed to help John reach the dueling venue, and it has a specifically designed barrel for better looks and comfort. It helps him during his initial battle with the hundreds of assassins sent out to stop him, but he soon has to switch to other weapons to reach the venue on time. Dragon's Breath shells, the weapon that breathes fire. Besides serving as effective weapons for John, the guns also serve the purpose of aesthetics, and some of these firearms are absolute treats for action fans. The Dragon's Breath shells, for instance, have been used in John Wick Chapter 4 simply for the cinematic value of the weapon. The assassin uses this when he is cornered in a building by multiple enemies, and the top-down perspective of the scene makes it one of the best ever fight scenes in the movie. These shotgun ammunitions add to the visual appeal appeal as they produce a flash of fire when fired. Although such bullets actually exist in the real world, they are illegal in most parts of the world and are custom made. The iconic dueling pistols in John Wick Chapter 4. The recent release in the John Wick franchise gave us a climax that takes things back to the roots. John Wick movies are, after all, a relentless saga of a revenge drama, and it goes back to its classic nature even in the final moments of the new movie. The blind assassin and John Wick used primitive dueling pistols for their final encounter, and the detailing on this old-fashioned weapon is fantastic. Fascinating. These weapons appear to be Thompson Center Arms Encore pistols and custom nickel-plated or silver cast .45 to 70 cartridges are used as ammo for a single round of firing in each round of the duel. There is no scope for underestimating this ancient weapon because it turns out to be the one that seemingly kills John Wick. More than the impact of the effective nature of these pistols, what impresses the most is how much of an eye candy the weapons are when they are first revealed in wooden cases. Do let us know in the comments below about your favorite weapon among the ones used by John Wick. Also tell us about your favorite moments of the deadly assassin using these weapons.